Familiar sounds. Samat's voice. As a child. Laughing. Calling for his father. Singing a lullaby his grandmother used to hum. They've taken my memories, he murmured. No, Ainura replied. They've become your memories. That's how they cross. She looked into the darkness. And now we have no choice. If we don't reach the third gate first, they will. The third gate. The hidden passage yawned open before them, and the hum returned. Lower, slower, like the heartbeat of something vast and ancient awakening in the dark. Samat hesitated. You've been here before, haven't you? He asked. Ainura stared into the black corridor. Her voice was thin. Once, when I was 12, I heard my father's voice, followed it too far. I barely escaped, but the others with me never came back out. The memories pressed on Samat like weight on his chest. He thought of the voices mimicking his mother, the figure pretending to be his grandfather, the warmth of the black stone in his bag. They stepped into the corridor. Instantly, sound warped. Footsteps no longer echoed normally. They bent, returning out of sync, as if time itself stuttered. Walls whispered constantly now, but not in full words. Just phrases, fragments. He lied. They're still here. You brought it too close. Don't let her open it. Samat stopped. They're talking about you. Ainura didn't respond. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a curved blade wrapped in cloth. It shimmered faintly, not from light, but from movement, as if it was slicing the air itself. This belonged to the first listener, she said. It's the only thing they fear. Not because it kills, but because it remembers them. Deeper they went. The tunnel narrowed and curved until the air itself seemed too tight to breathe. Then suddenly, it opened into a chamber so large it echoed like a cathedral. But this place was no sanctuary. It was a grave. Skeletons, hundreds of them, were stacked along the walls, their bones fused with the stone as if swallowed alive. Mouths open, hands stretched forward, faces locked in screams. And at the far end, the third gate. It wasn't a gate in the traditional sense. It was a swirling portal, tall as a two-story building, shaped like a whirlpool made of smoke and ash. Symbols spun around it, the same ones from the journal, but now glowing red. In front of it stood a figure, tall, covered in a dark robe that shimmered like oil. Its face was hidden, but it radiated something Samat recognized immediately. It was the mimic from his house, but now fully formed, no longer pretending. You brought the key, the figure said without moving its mouth. The voice was everywhere and nowhere. And you brought the listener. How generous. Samat stepped back. We're not giving you anything. You already have, it replied. Every memory you clung to, every voice you trusted, every fear you hid. They fed us. They opened this place. Ainura raised the blade. The figure tilted its head. You think that relic can stop us? Not stop you, Ainura said, but remind you. She stepped forward and slashed the air. The blade didn't touch the figure. It touched the space between them. And suddenly, the chamber shifted. The walls turned to mirrors. Each one reflected not Samat and Ainura, but other people. Lost ones. Trapped ones. The names from the journal. Their eyes were wide, their mouths moving silently. Some reached out. Some banged on the glass. Samat's grandfather was among them. And then Samat saw something that nearly made him collapse. Himself. A mirror version of Samat stood behind the glass. Younger, smiling, whispering words that couldn't be heard. What is this? He asked, voice cracking. Ainura's blade pulsed again. These are the echoed, she said. People who answered when they shouldn't have. Trapped forever in memory. Used like puppets. The figure before the gate began to change, splitting into dozens of shapes. Old men. Children, family, friends, voices Samat trusted. All of them spoke at once. Let us through, just say yes. Ainura turned to Samat, breathing hard. Don't answer, not even with a thought. They'll twist it. But Samat's mirrored version pressed its hand against the glass and spoke his name. Perfectly, lovingly, and the gate pulsed. It had started to open. When a mirror speaks, the third gate pulsed like a living wound, swirling faster with each second. The voices didn't scream anymore. They pleaded, Samat, come with us. You don't have to be alone anymore. We remember you. Don't you remember us? The chamber shimmered with fractured light, every mirror vibrating with the sound of names. One by one, the trapped figures pressed their palms against the glass, their mouths moving in sync, whispering Samat's name like a prayer. Ainura staggered, gripping the memory blade. They're breaching too many at once. The echoes are collapsing into real time. Samat backed away from the mirror, showing his own reflection. But the image did not move with him. It stayed, and then it smiled. Ainura saw it too. Her eyes went wide. That's not your reflection. The figure inside the glass stepped forward, placing both hands on the surface. Its eyes turned pitch black, and its voice echoed in Samat's skull. You gave us your fears. Now give us your form. Suddenly, the glass cracked. A thin spiderweb fracture spread from the center outward, and a soundless pressure wave burst through the room, like reality hiccuping. Ainura screamed, "Get away from the mirror!" Samat dove to the side just as the glass shattered. His mimic, the echoed version of him, stepped out, but it wasn't fully human. Its movements were smooth, almost floating. Its skin shimmered faintly like rippling water, and its smile never faded. I know everything you've ever felt, Samat, it said. Your doubts, your guilt, your weakness. Why struggle? Let me carry it all. Samat stood, trembling, eyes locked on the creature that looked like him, spoke like him, was him. Ainura raised the blade again. If it touches you, if you let it finish the mimic, you'll disappear. Not die, just unravel. Samat turned to her. How do we stop it? You don't kill a memory, Ainura replied. You replace it. That was when Samat understood. He pulled the black stone from his bag and stepped toward the echoed version. The mimic cocked its head, curious. You brought the seed of remembrance, it whispered. Too late. But Samat ignored it. He gripped the stone tighter, closed his eyes, and remembered. Not fear, not doubt, but something else. His mother's lullaby. The way she'd hum when he was sick. The sound of the spoon clinking in her teacup. His grandfather's laugh during the first snowfall. The books he used to read by candlelight. The mimic twitched. Its smile faltered. Stop. But Samat kept remembering. He opened his eyes, glowing faintly now, and shoved the stone against the mimic's chest. The creature let out a piercing scream that split the room in two. The mirrors exploded. The portal twisted, now spinning in reverse. From inside, shapes shrieked in fury and retreated. The mimic's body folded in on itself, glitching like a corrupted recording before it collapsed into dust. Silence returned. The gate stilled. Ainura dropped to her knees, exhausted. You remembered what they couldn't touch, she gasped. That's what keeps them out. Samat stared at the now-closed portal. Was that the third gate? Ainura looked up, face pale. No, that was the threshold. She pointed at the wall behind the gate, where a new passage had opened. Tall, ancient, and filled with blinding light. The third gate lies ahead, and now they know we're coming. The forgotten gate. The light pouring from the new passage wasn't sunlight. It was memory light, Ainura's word for it. Not a glow you see with your eyes, but with your mind. As Samat stepped toward it, he saw flashes, not of his life, but of others. Men in armor. Women weaving symbols into cloth. Children placing black stones into the mouths of the dead. A civilization buried in silence. Ainura whispered, barely audible. This is where the world ended the first time. They stepped into the passage. The walls here were smoother, almost polished, lined with carvings of human figures kneeling before massive, formless shapes. At regular intervals, small obsidian bowls flickered with memory flame, dancing blue and white as if alive. The hallway bent in impossible angles. Samat once looked behind them and saw their footprints ahead instead. Time and direction meant nothing here. Finally, the hall opened into a colossal chamber. At its center, the forgotten gate. This gate wasn't made of smoke like the last. It was stone, towering, circular, ringed with ancient glyphs that shifted as they watched. At the base was a pedestal, different from the one before. This one was cracked, bleeding soft streams of white mist. And embedded within it was another black stone, larger than the one Samat carried. That's the root echo, Ainura said. The first memory that ever existed. The one that gave them form. Samat stared. The stone pulsed like a heart. And around the gate, 12 figures stood. Statues? No, guardians. They were human once, but now fused with stone, like fossils caught mid-prayer. Their mouths were open, and on their chests glowed the same Sunin 3 rays symbol Samat had burned into his shoulder. A voice echoed from above, smooth, resonant, ancient. You are the echo-bearer, the listener. You have entered the final memory. Who are you? Samat asked. The chamber responded, not in words, but in sensation. A wave of emotion rolled over him. Grief, awe, terror, love. He fell to one knee. They're the first voices, Ainura said. The ones who created memory itself. Before language. Before thought. They stored feelings in stones, and then something learned to feed on them. Samat stood slowly. So the things that mimic us were born from our pain. The glyphs on the gate shifted again, this time forming two symbols Samat recognized. His name, and Ainura's. A tremor passed through the floor. Then the gate spoke. One may pass. One must stay. Ainura stiffened. No, we came together. The seal must be kept, the gate answered. The echo must remain balanced. Samat looked at her. You knew this. Ainura didn't deny it. That's why the listeners always vanish. One has to stay inside, to keep it quiet, to keep them from breaking through. Samat's heart pounded. Then I'll stay. You've done enough. No, she interrupted. You're the new echo-bearer. You're the first to resist them fully. That means you have a chance to end this, not just delay it like I did. The mist began rising from the floor. The gate pulsed again. Choose. Samat stared at Ainura, her face strong, her eyes unafraid. I'll return if I can, she said. But if not, tell them we were more than what they remembered. A sound like a song filled the chamber. Not from mouths, from the stones. The gate opened, just a sliver, and Ainura stepped toward it. But before she crossed, she pressed her hand to Samat's chest, over the mark. Don't forget me, she whispered. That's how I stay real. And then she passed through the gate and vanished. The gate sealed shut behind her, the symbols fading to black. Samat stood alone in the silence. But he was not the same. Now, he remembered everything. The surface has changed. Samat stood before the sealed gate for a long time. The chamber had gone completely silent. The mist that had once danced along the floor now lay still, as if even the air itself was in mourning. The 12 guardians remained unmoving, but somehow they felt different, like they were watching him now. He reached into his pocket and gripped the smaller black stone, the one he'd carried since the beginning. It felt lighter, not in weight, but in burden, as though part of its memory had passed to the larger stone, the root echo. Ainura was gone, but she had passed through willingly, with purpose. A gatekeeper. And now, Samat was the last listener. He turned back toward the twisting corridor, retracing their steps through the warped geometry of the caverns. But this time, the walls didn't whisper. The mirrors no longer shimmered. It was as though the echoes were retreating or sleeping. Still, he didn't trust the silence. He moved quickly through the passageways, past the stone skeletons, past the remains of his own reflection's shattered mimic. Finally, the path narrowed again and spilled him into the mouth of the echo caverns. Light, real daylight. He hadn't seen it in what felt like a few hours. But as he stepped outside, his breath caught. The sun was in the wrong place. The trees had changed, grown. The old sign near the ridge, danger, unstable ridge, was gone, rusted into nothing but a stump of metal. The trail was overgrown with vines and brush that hadn't been there before. He climbed to the top of the hill, overlooking the valley, and stopped cold. The village was gone. In its place stood a small forest, wild and untamed. He turned in every direction, scanning for rooftops, fences, anything. Nothing. Just wilderness. He hurried down the slope, through the trees, past where the schoolhouse once stood, past where the dusty library used to be. All gone. Only stones and earth. Finally, he saw something, a modern campsite, metal equipment, solar panels, and a strange rectangular tower rising from a field. It looked like some kind of research facility. As he approached, a voice barked from a loudspeaker. Alt, state your name. Samat stepped forward, hands raised. Samat K. From the village. Which village? The voice interrupted. This one. Or, it was here. There was silence. Then the speaker clicked again. Identify yourself again. I'm Samat K. My grandfather was Murat K. I lived in this valley. After a long pause, another voice, calmer, human, came from behind him. That's impossible. He turned. A woman in a silver jacket stood at the tree lean, holding a tablet. Murat K. Disappeared 73 years ago. Samat's chest tightened. That can't be. You're listed as deceased, she added, along with Ainura K. and a number of others lost in the Red Cliff region during the 20th century. Samat stared at her, heart pounding. What year is this? The woman frowned, tilting her head. It's 2098. Samat staggered backward, nearly falling. 73 years. But he was still 24, not a day older. Time doesn't flow the same inside the gate, he whispered. The woman stepped closer, watching him with interest. You were in the Echo Caverns? He nodded. She lifted her tablet, fingers moving fast. We've been studying those caverns for decades. They sealed themselves sometime in the 2030s. No one's ever made it back out. Not until now. Samat didn't answer. The wind carried a faint whisper through the trees. One word. Remember. His mark burned gently on his shoulder. Not pain, but presence. Ainura was still there, holding the gate closed. Samat looked up at the woman. They're not just voices, and that gate isn't dead. You have no idea what's still beneath your feet. The woman stared at him, then slowly whispered, We do now. And behind her, the black stone tower began to hum. The tower of signals. The humming grew louder. Low, steady, mechanical, but underneath it, Samat felt something older. A resonance. The silver-jacketed woman tapped her tablet and turned back toward the black tower, rising from the field like a spike driven into the earth. We call it the signal column, she said, built on top of the old cavern system. We didn't know about the gate at first, just that strange frequencies were leaking from the ground. You're broadcasting? Samat asked, alarmed. Not anymore, she replied. We did for 30 years, mapping the echoes, amplifying the signals, trying to understand them. Samat's stomach turned. You fed them. She didn't understand. Fed. He stepped forward, voice rising. The echoes aren't just sound. They feed on memory, thought, attention. The more you focus on them, the more real they become. But that doesn't make sense. They're data fragments, sound loops. No, Samat snapped. They're alive. The humming intensified. Somewhere within the tower, red lights blinked to life. The woman blinked. When we reached 73.4 hertz, something changed. We started getting responses. Voices repeating names from our files. Not ones we uploaded. Other names. From the past. From classified documents. You cracked the outer seal, Samat whispered. You opened the threshold again. The air shifted. The grass bent in a breeze that didn't touch his skin. Samat looked to the horizon and saw movement in the woods. Not people. Shadows. They slithered between trees like smoke with form. Echoes, no longer confined to stone. The gate hadn't just bled a little. It had leaked for decades, until they'd built a tower to amplify the wound. Samat turned to the woman. Shut it down. We can't, she said. Not entirely. The systems are self-regenerating, auto-stabilizing. They were designed to adapt to unknown frequency behavior, then destroy it. She shook her head. It's too valuable. We've built our entire atmospheric data grid around this column. It's the central hub for 27 research bases. You don't understand what's at stake. I do, Samat said coldly. Reality. Behind them, the earth rumbled. The woman's tablet lit up with warnings. Echo event anomaly detected. Signal duplication. 3.4% memory distortion. Unrecognized data loop. Name equals Samat K. Her eyes widened. They're mimicking you. Samat didn't answer. He was already running. Toward the base of the tower. Guards shouted. Technicians scrambled. Alarms flared. But none of them understood what he had seen. What he had become. He reached the core terminal at the base, locked behind glass. Inside, humming away, his original black stone. They found it, extracted it from his abandoned house, placed it in the system as a signal source, and unknowingly broadcast it to the world. He slammed his hand against the glass. Open it. The woman arrived behind him. We can't. It's bonded to the memory circuit. You'll destabilize the column. Good. People will die. And more will if I don't. Samat turned. You studied echoes. I lived among them. Ainura died sealing that gate, and you've been feeding it back to life for 70 years. He raised his palm, the mark of the echo bearer glowing brightly now. The glass melted away. Technician screamed. Samat reached into the column and pulled the black stone free. At once, the tower's hum broke into chaos. The red lights blinked rapidly. All across the valley, speakers exploded with voices, screams, whispers, lullabies, arguments, decades of memory unleashed at once. Samat dropped to his knees. The woman looked up at the tower, horrified. What did you do? He looked up, blood on his lip, eyes glowing faintly with the afterimage of the gate. I told you. I remembered. The echo unleashed. The valley trembled. The moment Samat removed the black stone from the tower's core, the entire landscape seemed to breathe, as if it had been holding itself together through force of denial, and was now exhaling everything it had buried. Screams, laughter, echoes of forgotten lullabies. They filled the air like smoke. The skies darkened unnaturally, not from clouds, but from shadows, great drifting shapes that had no form, only impression. Like memories cast loose from their anchors, now free to wander. The woman in the silver jacket, Dr. Layla Aaron, as her ID badge read, stood frozen beside him, tablet flickering with red warnings. We're registering memory leakage across all frequency bands, she whispered. This isn't sound. It's rewriting interface code. It's rewriting us. Samat steadied himself against the tower's base. You brought them up? Now you need to help me put them back. Layla turned to him, pale. You don't understand. The system was never meant to contain anything. It was built to receive. We've become receivers for memories we don't own. Suddenly, one of the soldiers stationed nearby collapsed, clutching his ears. His mouth opened, and someone else's voice came out. Mama? Where did you go? Mama? I don't want the red gate. It wasn't his voice. It wasn't his words. But his eyes, wide, black, were no longer his own. Others began to fall. Researchers, technicians, guards. Some wept. Some screamed. Some stood motionless, whispering names from decades ago. Layla backed away in horror. They're being overwritten. Samat looked to the horizon. The shadows had reached the trees, and they were walking now. Mimics, born of sound and thought. Half real, each wearing a face stitched from memory. Some were perfect replicas of loved ones. Others had no features at all, just blurred outlines like unfinished drawings. But one among them stood still, tall, draped in a black coat, hat low over its face. Samat's breath caught. It's him. Layla followed his gaze. Who? The first mimic I ever saw. The one who called himself my grandfather. The figure raised its head slightly, and Samat felt the tug in his mind, like invisible fingers flipping through his thoughts. It smiled. We were patient, it said, not aloud but everywhere. You opened the gate. Now the world belongs to its memories. Samat turned to Layla. I need amplification. What? Your tower sends signals, right? Then I need you to send me. Layla's voice broke. You'll burn yourself. The resonance will collapse your neural pattern. Not if I focus on only one memory. He pulled out the second black stone, the one from deep beneath the caverns, the one Ainura had sealed. This is the root echo, the original thought, the oldest silence. He stared into the stone's pulsing center. I'm going to remind them. She hesitated, then nodded. Follow me. They climbed the emergency stairwell inside the tower, rushing past flickering monitors and failing servers. The entire structure moaned like a sinking ship. At the top platform, wind howled through the frame, and the sky above split with a thunderless crack. Not weather, but memory tearing open. Layla hooked the stone to the signal cable. This will give you 60 seconds of absolute broadcast control. Then the system will fry. Samat took the cord, placed the stone against his heart, and whispered, Ainura, hold the door. And then he remembered. Not fear, not pain, but something true. The day he first rode on his grandfather's shoulders. The laughter echoing across the field. The warmth of his mother's hand as they lit the first candle during a blackout. The scent of old paper in the village library. The heartbeat of the world before the whispers began. He pushed that memory into the stone, and Layla flipped the switch. The tower screamed. A shockwave blasted across the valley. The shadows froze. Tall. That's why you'll never be real. The sky cracked open, and for a second the sun shone through. The gate trembled, and the echoes screamed. The battle for the real. The light didn't last. A few precious seconds, enough for the sun to pierce through the clouded sky. The smoke, the fractured veil of memory that had draped over the valley like a funeral shroud. But it was enough. The mimics reeled, staggering like wounded phantoms. Their faces flickered, some melting back into mist, others splitting into different versions of the same person. A laughing child, a weeping elder, a cruel stranger. All in one body, all trying to exist in the same memory. And losing. The black-coated figure stood firm. Its face was no longer hidden. It was Samat's face. But wrong. The smile was too wide. The eyes too calm. The expression too perfect, like a painting of a memory, not the real thing. You have rewritten us, it said. That is unforgivable. Samat didn't flinch. No, I remembered what was true. That's the difference. The figure stepped forward. Then let me show you what the world remembers about you. Suddenly, the sky twisted, and Samat was no longer on the tower. He was standing in his childhood bedroom. Everything was the same. The old wooden shelves, the yellow curtains, the scratchy rug underfoot. But the colors were off. Too bright, too warm, and someone was behind him. His mother, or something wearing her memory. Samat, you've been gone so long, she whispered. Let go of the weight. Let us carry it for you. All of it. Forever. Samat backed away. You're not her. The mimic smiled softly. But I feel like her. That's all memory is. A feeling. If it's good, why not believe it? The walls cracked. The floor melted. He was suddenly in the echo caverns again, only flooded. The water rose fast. He was drowning in voices, grasping hands, screams that had no source. But through it all, a voice cut through. Ooh, flut. Ainura's voice. Faint, distant. Hold the root. Samat opened his hand. The root echo glowed, dim now but alive. He clutched it to his chest and whispered, I remember, the real her. Not the voice, not the image, the feeling. An illusion cracked. The caverns vanished. The mimic mother burned into vapor. Samat was back atop the tower, on his knees, gasping. Layla knelt beside him, shaken. They try to overwrite you. They can't, he said, as long as I anchor myself. Far below, the mimics had frozen. Some were dissolving into black mist. Others collapsed, unable to sustain their form. But the black-coated mimic was still standing, and it raised its arms. The tower shook. From all directions, new shapes began forming. Not just echoes now, reflections. Replicas of the tower team. Of Layla. Of Samat again. Dozens of him. You are not one memory, the mimic said. You are many. Fractured. Fragile. If you forget who you are, we win. Samat stood. Then I'll remind everybody. He took the root echo and walked to the center of the tower's antenna ring. Layla cried out, Samat. That's full exposure. Yule. I know. He placed the stone into the center of the dish. It began to spin. Faster and faster. A frequency, deep and powerful, exploded outward. But this time, it didn't carry fear. It carried clarity. Every human in the valley, everyone in earshot, felt it. Their own truest memory. Their anchor. Their mother's voice. Their father's laugh. The smell of firewood in winter. A hand on their shoulder when they thought they were alone. All of it surged into the field, and the mimics screamed. They could not hold their shape. They were being unwritten. The figure in black fell to its knees. You cannot hold us forever. Samat walked toward it. The sky blazed behind him. No, he said, but I can make the world remember what you really are. And then he touched its chest with a root echo. A blinding flash. Then silence. Just the wind. And Samat, standing alone in the grass where the tower had once been. Only the stone remained in his hand. And behind him, Layla slowly stepped forward. "What did you do?" Samat turned, weary but smiling. "I reminded the world." The last memory. The tower was gone, reduced to ash and whispering dust. The black metal that once pulsed with false memory had melted into the earth, leaving behind only scorched grass and the faint scent of burnt ozone. Samat stood at the edge of the crater, the root echo in his hand, now cold. The pulse that once beat like a second heart had faded. The voices were gone. No more whispers. No more mimicry. No more seductive lies disguised as family, as childhood, as grief. Layla Aaron stood beside him, her face pale, her silver jacket torn and smeared with ash. Behind her, the research team gathered in stunned silence. Some wept, some stared at the horizon, unsure of what was real anymore. "They're really gone?" Layla asked quietly. Samat didn't answer right away. He looked down at the stone, then at the rising sun. After 73 years sealed in a timeless cavern, the sky still looked the same. But the world, and he, had changed forever. "They're not gone," he said at last. "Just remembered differently. I don't understand." Samat turned to her. The echoes were never monsters. They were pieces of us. Twisted, yes. Hungry, but born from our memories. Our pain. Our guilt. He knelt and buried the stone in the center of the crater. The only way to defeat something made of memory is to remember it truthfully. Not as fear, not as myth, but as mistake. He stood. Layla looked around the site. "What happens now?" "You start over. No more towers. No more signal probes. Just silence. Real silence. Let the earth forget for once." "And you?" she asked. "Where will you go?" Samat gave a tired smile. "Back to the forest. To the gate. Someone has to make sure it stays sealed." Layla stepped closer. "Come with us. We can protect you. Study what's left of your ability. You're the last listener. You could help the world prepare." "No," he interrupted gently. "I'm not the last. Just the first of a new kind." He looked toward the hills, where the wind brushed the tops of the trees. "Others will hear. Eventually. But now they'll know how to fight." Layla hesitated, then nodded. "We'll shut down the Echo program." "Thank you." They shook hands. Samat turned and began walking toward the edge of the valley. The sun was rising behind him, burning away the shadows. As he crossed the field, birds returned. The wind sounded like itself again. Real. Just before he disappeared into the trees, Layla called out one last time. "Ooh, Samat." He turned. "How will we know if the echoes ever return?" Samat smiled. "You'll hear your name from someone who should know it." And then he was gone. Epilogue. Years later, a child stood beside a mountain stream, far from any village. Her fingers traced a stone she had found, smooth, black, and warm in her hand. As she turned it over, a single whisper echoed softly in her ear. "Ainura." She looked around. No one was there, but she smiled, not afraid, not curious, just knowing. She placed the stone in her satchel and walked on. The story wasn't over. It had only begun again.